I think when people vote, they vote not for a politician, but they are voting for the leader they want. I think the word you should have used, Mr. Masley, was leader rather than politician. Two of our speakers emphasized on the importance of check and balances. I think it is important to realize that the termination of GST has ensured check and balance in the way we understand it. Because with GST, it meant that the government had a big enough balance to write checks to buy off the people they want. So checks and balance is an important concept, but let's have the rest of the time for Q&A.
So my questions my question is actually about the existing economic policy like the TN50 and whatever that the ministry has already set forth on what they want to achieve, in terms of investing in local intellectual property, etc. So my question is, since now the opposition is since now we have a new government, so what does it mean? So what are the implications for the industry, especially for multinationals?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Faisal Abdurrani from the Sustainable Business Network. My question is, how does the new government is going to blend with some of the good policy? For example, in Kuala Lumpur, the biodegradable policy, the supposedly on not yet implemented, like the building energy efficiency policy, as well as if the new government also would like to take a stand on maybe banning single-use plastic, like a lot of other countries. This is a part of our effort as well to fight marine pollutions, and how, if we look at even in KL, the single-use plastic are contaminating our rivers. So where does some of this strong environmental policy will come in, or if there's the blend in with the current good policy?
Hello, my name is Arthur.
Welcome, Arthur.
Right. My question is this. I feel that the most important reform that we can have is electoral reform. With electoral reform, it will make it easier for us to change government. Will the panel members support and help us champion this? I have another question to Wan Saiful. Wan Saiful have raised the question of a strong opposition to the present government. But looking at how things is developing, I think Wan Saiful, you can rest assured that you'll be fighting within yourself in the next 5 years for more seats. Would you agree? And if not, why not?
Okay. So let's start off with Wan Saiful. We'll go in the order that the speakers.
Okay. Thank you. Let me try to answer the question about healthcare first. And I think that has a link to the other question about continuity with the previous administration and so on. I think what we should understand is this is not like resetting completely as if it's a blank sheet and there was nothing done before. We do need to understand that there are things that have been done in the past. We need to pick the good things that have been done in the past. I think it would be a lie if anyone were to say that everything that was done in the past was all bad. It's not like that. There are some good things, there are bad things. The bad things we need to fix, the good things we need to continue and improve on. So when it comes to healthcare, there are various promises is in this. I'm not going to read in it, but the gist of it is the government allocation for healthcare is going to be increased from, I think, less than 2% now. Well, within the first term of government, we want it to be 4% of GDP. So that in itself is a big commitment towards healthcare. And I think there's a lot of things that the private sector in healthcare can do to help this. If we go through the list of promises, there are many things that we say that we will look into, from non-communicable diseases to rare diseases to various different things, so to mental health. So there are things that we will do, but it's too early to be very specific on the steps that we will take. What I can say is, once the Minister of Health has been appointed, at the moment we don't even have a Minister of Health yet. So once the person is appointed, then we will know what direction will be taken. I think at the moment it's too soon to make any prediction other than what is written on paper in the manifesto document. So if you are from industries, if you are thinking about how to plan for the next few weeks at the very least, what you should do is look at the specific sections in the manifesto, what can be relevant to your industries, and this is the time for you to prepare so that once the relevant ministers are named, then you can immediately go and talk to the person. So that's number one. I know it's not a very specific answer, but I hope you understand that it's not complete cancellation of everything that's been done before. What we're trying to do is to identify the bad apples, remove them, and the good things, improve from them, and make sure that we will continue to grow from there. Now, the question from up there is that's a very clever way of putting the question. We will not have to face opposition because we will be fighting among ourselves. Let me put it this way. There are people who, if you look at people in UMNO and Barisan Nasional, for example, there are some people who are very good when they are in government, but they will become lousy opposition. Some of them. And it works in the same way as well. It takes time for people from the opposition to learn how to be in government. And maybe there are some people who are in opposition who will perform very well, but not necessarily good as being part of the government. This is part of a learning process. The UMNO and Barisan Nasional needs to learn how to be good opposition members. Same like us, we need to learn how to firstly admit and realize that we are now in government. There's a certain discipline that we need to practice when we are in government. It's no longer about leaking things to the media. It's no longer about just I don't like what's happening here, let me call my friend in Malaysia Kini. It's no longer like that. So there are certain disciplines that need to be practiced, and this is a test. The first few weeks will be a big test to indicate whether we can very quickly learn to become member of the government and the administration or not. So I'm very sure if you give us some time, but be fair to us. 60 years, 60 years, it will not change in 3 days.
You have
So,
60 months, 5 years.
So give us some time to learn the ropes. There will be people who take responsibility, may be given positions and so on. Once they are in place, things will settle down. And then, hopefully, we will have a proper government versus opposition type of discussion rather than focusing on the wrong thing that seems to be happening now. How is that for a political speak?
Okay, there are two questions I would like to respond to. Number one is about environmental policies. Yeah, we will continue whatever good policies we have on environment. And in addition, we have Promise 39 in this book, talking about the environmental policies that we are going to implement. But having said that, talking about banning these, banning that, plastic, polystyrene, yes, we are into that. But again, for people from academia, I strongly believe in education. Sometimes when you impose certain policies, people do not really realize the importance of it. They became, they oppose it out of their ignorance. They feel that it's a burden rather than good thing for their well-being. So that is why I believe in these 5 years, before we implement any policies, laws to ban this and that, we need to educate the people on how to preserve the environment, on the well-being and whatnot. And, mind you, people are ready for that. We have media, we have the social media, we have schools and, universities. Sunway College has a very good green policies that I observe, at least what been told by my daughter. And talking about academia, I'm not a Minister of Education yet. When you're addressing me as if I'm one, I don't think a newbie, a newcomer with 2 months old in politics would be appointed to that senior position. But, I would try to bring the voice of academia to the parliament.
That's what I can assure you. How can we bring an end to all the misery that we have in our IPTAs, in public universities? I think we need to empower university to be more autonomous. We have a lot of things can be done, but the most important thing, we must end the political interference and control in public universities by avoiding any political appointees to be top leadership in the public universities. If Pakatan Harapan government still practice that, I'll be the first to oppose that, despite my position as government. Okay, good, good. I don't think I'm that handsome. And also, I believe in competency rather than, chronism and whatnot. I don't say meritocracy is going to be scandalous, especially when the media pick it up. Okay. And also we need to strengthen the endowment culture in public universities. In order to be autonomous, they need to be self-funded, but, definitely Pakatan Harapan wouldn't leave the public universities alone to generate their income. In these coming years, definitely we will help them more than what BN government has done, but we will also trying to enhance the culture of endowment. Okay.
And one more.
Please, let's continue.
Okay. And I think the most important thing, what I would like to bring in academia is to bring the culture of happiness and love. This rarely being taught and being spoke in public universities. We are talking about ranking. We always talk about, market, how we could supply the market, whatnot. No, I think in this coming years, I'm going to emphasize more on love and happiness in public university. Nice. It sounds very rhetoric, but, a lot of my colleagues, excluding me, have been suffered with stress, high blood pressure, heart problem, and whatnot, due to whatever overloaded, things that have been given to them. And, happiness can never come with stressful lifestyle. We need to bring happiness into our public university. Thank you very much.
On the questions of foreign companies, I think in general, the new government would want to be pro-business. Of course, there are specific cases and specific issues, I think, that requires specific attention. There will be different areas of concern. But overall, I don't think the government would want to have major changes in its policy on trade and commerce. On the questions of environment, I think that is something that didn't feature a lot during the campaign, but I think this will be something that we have to pursue. On the question of electoral reform, I agree with you. I think electoral reform is an important issue, and it's probably the issue when it comes to institutional reform. There will be, you talk about fighting among the opposition parties, among the Pakatan parties, sorry, within the Pakatan parties. I think one thing that we have to be very clear, there is no dominant party in this coalition. This is a coalition of 4 parties for now, and most likely Warisan will be considered part of the bigger family. So this is a coalition of at least 5 parties. And there will be some differences, and we will have to work out a mechanism, and I think we're working out the mechanism quite well. But perhaps I think this is something that is not necessarily bad for the country. You have a coalition government of almost equal strength. If you consider, let's say DAP is one block, PKI is one block, the rest is another block. You have a coalition of almost equal strength. And I think that is a departure. That is a major departure from the one-party state that we were accustomed to. and of course there will be time for adjustment. I think that is something good for the country. My final point is about the opposition. I say this a few days before polling day. I say I want to see Kyrie as opposition leader. I think if Kyrie as opposition leader, we will have a decent opposition at the least. And I think it's good for the country. I think, I mean, for the sake of the country, perhaps there should be a wholesale reshuffle within the opposition, and let Kyrie be the opposition leader. And perhaps that will be good for something good for the country in the sense that you will have what they call an opposition leader which has some clout over the public. Thank you.
My question is for Dr. Mazli. I'm attracted to what you said, that you want to have the honor of announcing to the country that you will abolish the Universities and University Colleges Act. Is that right?
No. I want to have the honor to move the motion.
Move the motion. Fine.
In the parliament.
To abolish it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 questions there. When will that happen? In 2 weeks' time, I'm giving a talk here. Can I quote you? Because he will go to the national newspapers. Second question, when that happens, who will have the power to appoint the vice chancellors of universities and the board of the universities? Who will have that power once you abolish that? Third question is, will you amend anything on the Private Higher Education Act 555 or not? So those are my questions. The third question, the public universities is governed by the Universities and University Colleges Act. But the private university like Sunway is governed by the Private Higher Education Act 555. Will anything be done to that also or not?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Dennison. I went through the manifesto and I think the panel highlighted that. There are many recommendations from the former Royal Police Commission, NEAC, NUCC. That's very good. But on the recommendation, which is on local government, there seems to be, which is Promise 25, there seems to be no commitment to local government elections. Would that be looked into? And on Promise 14, which is on reform of the parliament, it doesn't state anything on the role of backbenchers. Would they be just supporting the government policies, or would they be an effective check? And now that Chintong and Wan Saiful might have a little bit more time, should they consider doing a nationwide roadshow on the manifesto and actually take it to the people to further strengthen and make it national aspirations in building the new Malaysia? Thank you.
Let me answer very quickly. I know Mazli will address the issue on universities, but let me just very quickly answer your question about the Act 355. That was raised in the discussion, but it was not put into the manifesto. So it opens room for this issue to be raised again if there's any improvement that you want to suggest. In the same way that I will respond to Dennison just now about local election as well as the role of the backbenchers. Both are not mentioned in the manifesto specifically, but it doesn't mean that the doors are closed for new ideas. About the appointment of the vice chancellors, I think it's clearly stated the board of directors of the university will be given autonomy and authority to appoint the vice chancellor and deputy vice chancellors based on their merits and in a transparent and competitive manner. So that should answer the question. I also want to make a point about this coalition of equal, if I may, that Chintong raised. I think this is where Malaysians generally need to adapt very quickly as well, just as we have to adapt to the fact that we are now in government and we're not free to speak just so willy-nilly whatever we want to say. Those of you who know me would realize that I'm being very cautious in what I say today. And I realize I'm not being myself at all. But the burden is there, because if you start saying something wrong, and that doesn't become policy of the day, it will become a major issue, especially in this time when we're trying to fix so many things and arrange so many things are still uncertain. So just as we need to adapt to this new environment, Malaysian public need to adapt to the reality as well, that Barisan Nasional is no longer here as government. And that is a big change, because within Barisan Nasional structure, what you have is one big brother dictating as the supreme overlord of all the other parties. That doesn't exist in Pakatan Harapan. It's a coalition of equals. And when you have a coalition of equals, it doesn't matter how many seats you have. You are treated and you behave and you expect to be treated as equals. If you take the sentiment on the ground, say for example, in my constituency in Pendang, we may have lost the election, but the sentiment on the ground is the Malay tsunami that Chin Tong spoke about was a wave that was created by Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, but galvanized, strengthened, multiplied many, many times by the presence of Tun Mahathir. The beneficiary of this tsunami is not necessarily Bersatu, because Bersatu was given the hardest seat to contest in. You look at the number of seats that Bersatu contested in. It's some of the seats. How many majority that you had? No. But the majority that you had to overcome, 9,000, right? In the 9,000. Some of the seats that we had to contest in, the majority was like 15,000, 20,000 majority. So even if there is a 15% swing in the Malay vote, that is still not enough for Bersatu to win. But the biggest beneficiary created by the presence of Bersatu is being reaped by is being felt by parties like the multiracial parties, like PKR and Amanah. So sentiment on the ground is that you cannot operate the way, number one, among the other parties, Bersatu, especially Tun Dr. Mahathir, cannot behave like the big brother. In the same way that Bersatu and Amanah as well expect that, just because the others are the bigger, have the bigger number of seats, you must realize how you got to that point. Because the Malay tsunami that was created was not created by the Chinese, the Indians. So that's how people think on the ground. This is where it is really important for the for the public generally to appreciate the sentiment on the ground and appreciate that this is no longer a big brother system where one person speaks and everybody else will follow in line. There will be differences between the political parties. We need to understand that that is healthy in a new democratic system. There will be differences. There will be people speaking to the press. There will be people saying things that are out of line from what the general consensus is. We need to allow that process to happen. Then we will mature. And while we get to that maturity stage, we just have to realize that there will be teething problems. So this is a new culture, and we all need to learn to adapt to this new environment. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To Dennison, actually, I sleep 5 hours. I slept 5 hours a day during election. I slept 3 hours a day after election. So actually busier doing backroom work post-election. There are so much to do post-election. On your question of the role of backbencher, actually, if we can actually push through a committee system in our parliament, then there will be a lot of roles, a lot of roles that the backbenchers can participate in the parliamentary process, and I hope that will happen, and I'm working on it. Thank you.
Okay, Tan Sri, replying to your question, when will I move that motion? I mean, I'm not sure whether they will give me the opportunity to move the motion. And I've been given that honor. It depends on the new speaker to allow me when to table the motion. But mind you, we haven't gone to take sumpah yet to the parliament. We're still in limbo. Okay, the second question been answered by Wan Saiful. No, the third question been answered by Saiful. Number two, who will elect all those kind of things? I think it also been answered by Wan Saiful. But mind you, the era of government knows everything has ended. What we will try to do is, at least I will try to persuade whoever the Minister of Education is, we need to consult the academia, the academics. We need to go to consultation. We need to consult not only Majlis Professor Negara, but also representative of all public universities, and they should be represented by their academic staff associations.
Well, thank you. We are 10 minutes over time. Thank you all for your patience. We have the second panel at 5 o'clock. But